Have you ever wondered if you're exhausted from teaching or if something deeper is going on? Now, most of us expect to be tired at the end of a school day or the week or the school year because, well, teacher life, right? But what happens when a weekend doesn't help? How about when Sunday afternoons and evenings start filling you with dread? When the smallest things start to suddenly feel overwhelming? Well, today's conversation might give you some words to something you've been feeling but haven't been able to explain. I'm so excited to bring you my friend Lori Owens, who is a former Army civilian PTSD expert and a Master Certified Resilience Trainer. She shared her own powerful story of experiencing severe burnout and trauma after serving overseas. Together, we're going to explore the difference between normal teacher exhaustion and burnout that may be affecting your nervous system. More importantly, Lori shares some really great practical strategies that you can start using immediately, even during a busy school day. It's going to help you to regulate your stress, create moments of recovery, and establish some healthy boundaries without feeling guilty. Listen, whether you've been feeling completely overwhelmed or simply want to just protect yourself from heading in that direction, I know you're going to find this conversation with Lori incredibly encouraging and practical. Let's jump in. Hey friends, welcome to Enjoy Teaching Again, the podcast for teachers who love the work but need a little spark to bring the joy back. I'm your host, Elizabeth Peterson, classroom teacher, arts integration specialist, and passionate educator of over 25 years. If you're overwhelmed by behaviors, disengaged students, and long, exhausting days, you are not alone. But together, we can turn things around and you can teach with confidence and purpose again. So locate that cold coffee of yours, find your favorite pen, I know you have one, and let's dive in. It's time to get inspired and enjoy teaching again. Well, hey, Lori, I'm so glad that you're here on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm really pleased to bring you on my podcast because so many teachers are dealing with burnout, anxiety, stress, and you are an expert in PTSD. So I'm so glad that I'm able to bring an expert on here to be able to really talk about some of the things that teachers are dealing with, or maybe not even realizing that they're dealing with. So thank you for being here.
I am really glad to be here. I love to help people to learn how to take care of themselves better so that they can be sustainably faithful. We want to be faithful. We want to be able to give, but it's very easy in particular fields. Motherhood, one of them,
Yes.
but teachers is another one. And so a lot of your teachers are going to be double hitting on that one. It's very easy to overgive and just to give yourself away until there's nothing left, in the name of faithfulness and selfless service. But we're not called to give ourselves completely away. And we need to be able to guard against that. So I'm really excited about what we're talking about today, to be able to put some things in place that can help you to continue to show up in your classrooms and provide, being there as all of you and not showing up as fragments. Some of the signs you can look for and what you can do about it.
Fantastic. So just tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to this place where you now host a podcast that's called Practical Solutions for PTSD?
So I worked with the Army for 16 years as a civilian. I never wore a uniform, but for 2 years I deployed to Kuwait and came back from there with what I was to find out years later was chronic severe PTSD,
Wow.
as well as extreme clinical burnout. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew I didn't feel like myself. I wasn't acting like myself. I couldn't re-engage in life like I had before, and I had no idea what was. It literally took me years. But in the process of trying to figure out what was wrong with me, I developed a passion for wellness and resilience, became a master certified resilience trainer and for the Army, and was actually working in that position when I sat in on a PTSD class during June, which is PTSD awareness. And I was just there to facilitate the electronics to make sure that people could sign in, that they could hear it, and also because it was my new position, I had just been hired to work with the resilience team.
Hmm.
It would help me to learn a little better how to serve the people. So I'm like, this all the external reasons. And I'm sitting there and they're talking about PTSD, and there's four categories of symptoms. And I had at least one symptom in every single category, and some of
Wow.
them multiple. And that was the first I realized I had PTSD. I was in complete shock.
Hmm.
But knowing what I had, what was going on, helped me to know how to treat it more effectively. And so I finally went to counseling. I started approaching things differently, and it's helped me to do a lot of healing and getting on the other side of that. And also through the process of learning resilience and developing tools that fit me, because I never quite fit in anybody's box. Like what
Yeah.
worked for them didn't really work for me. And so trying to figure that out, and unlocking some of that, it just really developed a passion for helping other people. And God promised me through some of those dark days that He had a purpose for the pain that I was going through.
Hmm.
So about a year and a half ago, God called me out of the army and said, it's time for you to put that to work for me full time.
Nice.
So I started the podcast, Practical Solutions for PTSD, and I help people develop personalized toolkits to combat depression, anxiety, to reconnect after isolation, dealing with some of the guilt that comes along with mental illness or mental health concerns, and to try to help them to know there's hope in the dark
Hmm.
and to help find their way out one step at a time. And as the title alludes, I love to provide practical, hands-on tips that you can implement today. Not a counselor, but I do coach people in how to handle day-to-day life while they're dealing with this.
Amazing. That's amazing story. And it is amazing how our journeys bring us to a point of where we can now help others. And
Yes.
I think that that's a beautiful story of how God was able to do that for you and for everybody else who's so privileged to listen to your podcast. And now I'm excited to have you here. So I want to tell you about something that kind of bothers me with teachers, and that is that so many teachers assume that feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and emotionally drained is just part of the job. It's just simply what teaching is supposed to feel like. So, from your perspective and your understanding of trauma and the nervous system, what are some signs that something deeper is actually going on? Like, how does a teacher know if she's just tired from a hard year or a busy end of year, or if her nervous system is genuinely stuck in a survival mode?
So being tired after a difficult school year is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's somewhere where we lose sight of what that trauma is, because it is normal to be tired. You've been working for 9 months with a bunch of squirrely kids, and it's exhausting. I mean, it's really, really tiring. And you maybe had a challenging year, some challenging students, some challenging parents, and so are challenging administrators. And it can make it just an exhausting thing to do. The difference is where if you take some time off, if you take some rest, your summer vacation is here or a weekend, and you rest and recover and you come back feeling normal. This is versus when you're dealing with trauma, you're going to come back from that and you're still exhausted. You're
Mm-hmm.
still worn out. You dread going into class the next day. I mean, one really good test for this, and it's something I dealt with myself, is when it comes to Sunday night before a class starts on Monday and you get sick to your stomach. You get this tightness in your chest. You start dreading the next day. I used to show up to work on Monday mornings, counting down the hours until Friday. And
Mm,
that's a miserable way to live.
it is.
And so when you're in that position, this is a definite signs of that you're dealing with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, some specific things that you could look for is being constantly hyper vigilant, where you're always scanning for problems, irritability or emotional reactivity over small things. And I mentioned earlier, one of the things that confused me when I came back from Kuwait is I wasn't acting the way I normally did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having meltdowns over the silliest things. I mean, just little tiny things. I'd have this major meltdown. Like, what is my problem? Like, even when I was doing it, it was like I had this out of body experience looking at myself going, why are you melting down over this? This is such a
Yeah.
small thing, and yet you're having a complete meltdown. And
Mm.
then on the extreme of that, you can feel numb, I'm disconnected, emotionally shut down. And some of this is just the inability to continue to feel the pressure that you're dealing with. Some of it could be an attempt to control the emotional instability because I was having meltdowns over silly things, I would lock it down when I was in public so I wouldn't, which meant
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't feeling. And there was times I wanted to feel and I just couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You could have trouble focusing or making simple decisions. They feel very overwhelming and you just can't really nail down into it. You could have some physical symptoms like headaches, tension, dizziness, fatigue, stomach issues, tightness in your muscles. Typically, when you're dealing with trauma or even with just stress, you're going to feel it somewhere in your body.
Yeah.
And it's different for different people. But when you're dealing with it, when it goes into trauma or burnout, it's going to be more consistent and more constant, especially when you're looking at that Sunday night scenario.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at going back into the classroom and you start really feeling this. Another sign of burnout, or when you're getting into that, is when you look highly functioning on the outside. In fact, you could be even a super functioning. Like, man, you are really knocking it out of the park. You're getting awards for the teacher of the year. All your
Mm-hmm.
tasks are done on time, but inside, you feel like you're coming unraveled a little bit at a time, and you're barely holding it together. You lose interest in your hobbies. You don't have the energy to connect in relationships. You can't find joy in your life anymore. I mean, there was a time I didn't know if I'd ever find it again
Mm-hmm.
because thankfully God has restored that for me. But you can get so emotionally numb and exhausted that you just don't have it anymore. Um,
Yeah.
so a hard year could feel like you're running a marathon, you need recovery, where survival mode is going to feel more like your body doesn't know the race is over and you're still trying to take one more step and one more step. And it's hard to shut that off.
Yeah. So it's like it's it seems extreme. But
Hmm.
what I think is interesting is that some teachers don't realize that that is what's happening inside them. So I'm actually curious, like, if we see this in our colleagues or if we see this in ourselves, like how can we recognize that and maybe even mention that? You know what I'm saying? It's it can be a touchy or a tough thing to approach. But if we, whether it's with ourselves or with a colleague, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that in terms of, if you're teaching in survival mode, you're noticing some of these things about yourself or about a friend that you maybe work with. You're seeing them with a short fuse. You're seeing them um, working so hard, being so very detail oriented, and yet you can tell that they're hurting inside.
Hmm.
Are there ways to approach them, or even to what would be like a first step for them to take?
If it's for yourself, one of the first things I'd recommend doing is admitting that you're not okay. And
Mm-hmm.
that is really hard, but also accepting the fact that it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So many times when you're in the position where you are giving, you don't want to admit that. I mean, one of the hardest things I have ever done is stood up in front of my church and told them that I had chronic severe PTSD. I didn't want anybody to know because I
Yeah.
felt like I was broken and I had failed somewhere. So it's really, really hard to admit that you need help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but understanding it's okay to be okay, if that's all right. You don't want to stay there,
Right.
but it's okay to not be okay. And then to reach out and get help when you need to implement some very basic practices to try to help rein that in and bring it back a little bit. You could just, some grounding practices, spending some time taking care of yourself, understanding you can't operate on a position of an empty cup. An empty cup is not going to pour anything out. You need to spend some time pouring some stuff back in and prioritizing that.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding it's really important. Um, I mean, if you need help doing that, I'm more than happy to help coach someone through that. But if you can also just, what do I need to do to take some time to rest, to be able to draw some boundaries, to be able to protect the resource. The most valuable resource you have is you,
Mm-hmm.
your time, your energy, your mission, your calling. So what can I do to protect that? For a colleague, it can be difficult to approach because again, it can come across as failure. that you're failing at your job, you're falling down in your job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just asking, are you okay? Is there something I can do to help? Is there a way that I can step in? Are you taking care of yourself? Letting them understand that you're there as a means of support, not as judgment. You're not providing judgment. Is there, can you want to sit down and talk? Can we go out for a cup of coffee and just connect and spend some time connecting? Do you need someone to vent to? Or can I connect you with someone that would be helpful if it's something you feel like you can't take on yourself, but you notice someone is having problems? Can I get someone else to be able to step in on their behalf? Can I take them to someone and let them know that they can get some help? Pointing them in the right direction and letting them know and communicating that message either verbally or through your actions that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Um, Another powerful way to do that is to share your own story. Have you been there before?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you've been teaching for a while, chances are you have.
Yep.
Or you've been pretty close. So sharing your own story and letting them know that you've been there, you understand the pain, and this is what helps you come out of it. Because God does not waste our pain. He will use that, and he could use the pain in your own life, the difficulty you've had in your own life to be able to help a fellow teacher.
That is so true. What great suggestions. I appreciate that, Lori. Okay, let's pause for just a second here, because if what Lori is saying is really resonating with you, if you feel like you're exhausted, maybe on the path to burnout, I want to tell you about something that might just be what can help you. I'm hosting my Classroom Reset Challenge, and it's coming up right around the corner in July. This is where we're going to take a close look at what student behaviors you're dealing with, what is actually underneath those student behaviors, how you can improve student behaviors, and how all of that helps you as a teacher. Because you are the most important part of your classroom, and we need to make sure that you're being taken care of. That's why this conversation with Lori was so important for us to have on the podcast. So now I want you to consider registering for the Classroom Reset Challenge, which will help you with so many things that we're talking about today in our interview with Lori. This challenge is completely free, and I want you there. Go to theinspiredclassroom.com/challenge. It's free to register. Yes, there are live sessions that you should attend, but there's also going to be replays so that you can watch it even if you can't make it live. I'm telling you, this challenge is going to be so worth your time. So again, go to theinspiredclassroom.com/challenge. I can't wait to see you there. And now let's get back to the interview. Now, I know that teachers care deeply, and the teachers listening to this podcast, I know, care so deeply, and often they take on responsibilities and worries that they just were never actually meant to carry. It's that secondary trauma that I'm actually thinking about here when we care so much about what's happening with our students, things that might be happening in their homes, students that we just can't seem to reach. Can you talk about that a little bit, and how might a teacher start to tell the difference between healthy compassion and the kind of caring that could be draining him or her or leading them down that path to burnout?
Yes, teachers do care very deeply, especially your good teachers. And that is one of their greatest strengths. But as often happens with your greatest strength, if you don't balance it and use it correctly, it can become one of your worst enemies.
Yeah.
Instead of energizing you, that becomes a source of exhaustion. Because you believe that you're responsible for your students' outcome, you're responsible for their healing, their happiness. And really, that's a burden that you were never intended to carry. It's a responsibility that is not yours. You do witness a lot. You see families struggling, poverty, trauma, anxiety, grief. And just seeing it in children is so heartbreaking to be able to witness that.
Yeah.
And you want so bad to fix it. At least I would.
Yeah.
I would be like, I want to fix this. I want to make it better. I just want to change all this and, fix everything. So being compassionate is good. So,
Yeah.
saying, I care deeply. I'm going to do what I can to help. What am I able to do? What is within my purview to do? What have I been equipped to do? But taking on responsibility for the well-being of that child, for their emotional state, for their safety, for their whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
this is beyond the scope of that's a burden that you're not called to carry. You
Mm.
cannot be responsible for the emotions of other people. You can't control that.
Yep.
And you can't control all the dynamics in that child's life. It's beyond your control.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important to focus on controlling the controllables. And one of my favorites is the Serenity Prayer, which I'm assuming that's you have at least some Christian teachers in your audience.
Mm-hmm.
But the Serenity Prayer has long been one of my favorites. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the
Mm-hmm.
courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It does take wisdom to know the difference. Where do
It
I draw the
does.
line?
Yeah.
What can I change and what can I not change? But you only have so much emotional energy. And I often use the analogy of $100 of cash. If I were to give you $100 and say, spend it wherever you need to spend it, and you spend $40 on something that you really have no control over, no, that's not your burden to carry. It's not what you can control and change. You only have $60 left to do what you are called to do.
Mm.
Where if you focus all $100 on what you are called to do, you can show up 100%. You can have the greatest amount of impact if you focus on what you can actually change.
Yeah.
And by focusing on those controllables, it removes an emotional burden that you're carrying you were never called to carry.
Mm.
And so often we think, especially if we're Christians, if we're in a place of service, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself, right? But all through scripture, we even see this in scripture where we have people very clearly, Jesus Christ himself drew boundaries on his ministry. He did what he was called to do. He did not serve every single person. And a classic example of that is the lame man that Peter and James healed after, or Peter and John healed after the resurrection. When they walked into the temple, you had a lame man that sat there by the temple for years that Jesus would have walked past many, many times and he did not heal him because that's not the design and the plan that God had in mind. God has a calling for each one of us that is on our lives. That is our mission, our calling. And the only way we can show up and fulfill it fully is to guard our energy in our hearts and make sure that we're not carrying burdens that are not ours to carry.
So well said. Thank you. Thank you for saying all of that because I think so many teachers needed to hear that. Um, there are some burdens that are not ours to carry and to focus on the ones that we are meant to, that we are called to. So thank you for
Yes.
that, Lori. So for the teacher who is nodding along right now, who recognizes themselves in the parts of this conversation, what are some things? What are maybe two or three realistic things that she or he can do during the actual school day to start regulating their own nervous system? I know we're recording this in the summertime, but I'm curious about what to do like in the middle of the day, maybe between morning meeting and an afternoon meltdown that's bound to happen. What are some things that a teacher can do?
I really like this question because so often we think that when we're talking about self-care or self-maintenance, I actually like to call it self-maintenance because you're really taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So you can be there to serve others. But when we think about having a spa day or going on a 10-day
Yes.
vacation to the Bahamas, and that's how we're going to rejuvenate ourselves. But it's really small actions throughout the day that help regulate our nervous system. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to actually, side note here, that teachers do regulate their system because your students are going to pick up on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's catching, just like a bad mood is catching, so is a dysregulated nervous system. And your student's going to pick up on it and reflect that right back at you.
They sure are.
So,
They reflect a lot of what is going
yes.
on.
Yes. So it's really, really important that you learn to regulate your system. And the best way to do that is to integrate practices into your everyday life.
Hmm.
And so one really easy one would be a 60-second reset.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in between classes, like if you have a, break or they're getting up, using the restroom, going for a drink, you take 60 seconds, do a breathing exercise to help ground you for a minute. Intentionally on purpose, unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, do those breathing exercises where you're exhaling longer than you inhale just to kind of relax the body and get some of that worked out and make this a consistent habit. You can do it between classes. You can do it when you go fill your water bottle, when you're going to the teacher's lounge to grab a snack, whatever that may be. You're running to the copier. Just take a couple seconds and do a 60-second reset.
Mm-hmm.
Do some breathing and intentional relaxing of your body, and that can really help you.
Excellent. And I will venture to input that teachers should be doing that in the first few minutes of their own classes. And
Yes,
that is going to set up themselves and their students for a really better experience as well.
agreed.
Yeah.
Another thing you could do in the middle of it when something is going haywire and upside down and backwards
Yes.
is to
Because it
ground your
will.
never. It would
It's
never do.
going to.
It's a ground yourself using your senses. So take
Mm.
your five senses. What can I smell? What can I see? What can I feel, touch, etc.? What can I
Mm-hmm.
hear? That is good. Like you may have a child in front of you having a complete meltdown, but you can look up and see, you do the creative thing. So maybe there's a picture on the wall that is one of your favorite scenes and brings back happy memories. You can look at this picture, take a second to ground.
Mm.
You can feel the cool air blowing across your face from a fan or the air conditioner, or you can, if you're a physical touch person, you might can rub your sleeve.
Yeah.
That is, a comforting texture and can help ground you in that moment and what you're feeling. You could hear something besides the child melting down in front of you.
Yeah.
Is there something else going on
Good.
that you can
Yeah.
hear that can ground you? But take a couple seconds and ground yourself in the senses other than what is going wrong. So finding something that is right to help you understand this is a both and situation. It's not just a child melting down, but there's other stuff going on that is also positive,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
it can help break the spiral of your own thoughts and kind of get your nervous system reoriented a little bit.
That is so interesting because one of the things that I think we teachers can be trained on, whether it's on the job training,
Yeah.
kind of like how what we learn as we go, or actual training is, trying to distract the child who is in a frenzy. And it's using those things. But I love how you positioned that as I'm picturing myself, and I'm sure some of my listeners are picturing themselves in a situation where there's a kid on the ground. Maybe you even evacuated the whole rest of your class, and there you are dealing with this child who's, you know, freaking out, and you can actually calm and ground yourself
Mhm.
as this is happening, whether or not it's working for the student in that very moment, and be able to, take the time to ground yourself in the present, and see that, like you just said, I can't remember how you said it, but it was wonderful. There are two things simultaneously happening,
Yeah, both,
and
both
it's
and
not all bad. What did you say?
both and mindset. You can
Cool.
both have a child that is melting down and have something positive at the same time, both
Yeah.
and mindset. Mhm.
Fantastic.
Yes. The third thing I would recommend is to create tiny islands of recovery and
Mm-hmm.
just build them into your day. So some of this I referenced earlier, but it could be, the walk to the copier,
Mm-hmm.
or if you have to change classrooms, if you're in a position where you change classrooms, where you're walking down the hallway, that could be an island of recovery, or standing outside the classroom door while you're waiting for children to come in for the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's an island of recovery. And if you could do it visually, it helps anchor it. I know when I used to work for the Army and I'd come home, I had a place at the end of the bridge that took you back and forth to the base. That was my place to offload my work and take up my life. That was the place I kind of changed suitcases, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. So if you could do something like that, build that into your routines. Like when I cross the threshold, this is when I'm doing this, but when I'm not, this is an island of recovery. I could do this to have a little bit of me time just to calm myself down, or this is my safe space, where I can, go to this corner, go to the teacher's lounge. This is my chair, whatever it is, wherever you have that, to create that into your routine. It doesn't even have to necessarily be in your specific teaching time, but maybe it's the drive to work where you're having time where you're listening to some classical music or you're listening to your favorite story, whatever it is, that's your haven of rescue. Before you drive home, you spend, just a couple minutes in the car before you leave the parking lot to kind of ground yourself and help you process the emotions of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And really making sure, speaking of processing, is don't bottle up those emotions. Find a way somehow to get at them out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you bottle them up, they're going to explode eventually and it's going to be worse.
Is
So,
this? Yeah.
yes, yes. So process them somehow. Find a safe place to do that, a safe way to do that. And that could be part of your islands of recovery throughout the day, having those places that are designated for that specifically.
Wonderful. Yeah. There's a bathroom that's in my classroom. It's a teacher bathroom. I have an open concept school, so people are through my room all the time. And I'd be willing to bet that that place is one of those islands because there are certain teachers that I see come in at certain times during the day. And now we have a name for it, ladies.
Island of recovery.
It's the island. I think
Yes.
maybe I might put a sign on the door, Island of Recovery.
Yes. I used to do that sometimes at work when I was still working for the Army. We had these, large women's bathroom, and there was a stall at the end that was larger and even had a chair in it.
Oh,
And
yes.
sometimes I would just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I would just go in there for like just 60 seconds. Just leave me alone for 60 seconds and I can,
Yeah.
kind of declutter the brain and go back and not strangle people.
Yes. Hey,
Always a better thing.
whatever works, right? That's great.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, we teachers hear the word boundaries a lot. For
Mm.
example, I have a very set boundary that I do not have school email on my phone. And I'm at to the point now where I faithfully just do about all my correcting, my grading inside the school day, right? There are easy ones to set, but others can be uncomfortable to set because setting a boundary can sometimes feel like at least what I've kind of sensed from other teachers when I talk about boundaries with them, they feel like they might be failing a student. Like, okay, but I have to check out this data after school, or I have to do my report cards after school. I have to put the sink all this time into it. Or it might feel like they're letting down a colleague, if they can't, I don't know, keep up on the text thread or whatever it might be, right? Or just feel like they're not being the teacher that they want to be. So, what would you say to a teacher who genuinely wants to protect her energy and her well being, but feels guilty when she actually tries to set a boundary? And what might be an actual healthy boundary? What might that look like for a teacher?
In this context, one thing to keep in mind is that guilt is not necessarily a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's just a signal from your nervous system that you're doing something different.
Interesting.
And it can feel uncomfortable at first and like, oh man, I really should be doing this.
Mm.
But it's really, really important to understand that if you do not protect your resources, they will be used up and there's nothing left. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I did this. I lived the story. It's not a pretty place to be. You don't want to do
No.
that. So, this is one way I learned eventually to set boundaries. And the interesting thing I found is when you set boundaries and you keep them faithfully, your work actually improves, your performance improves, your relationships improve, along with your own energy. And when you're coming to the classroom, you're closer to 100%. If you're not there all the way, you have a better attitude, more energy to invest in it, which makes the end product so much better. So boundaries are super, super important. Um, I would start setting boundaries small. You don't want to just, jump in the deep end and like set these major boundaries, but start very small. Give yourself at least room to pause before you say yes. Yeah. And make sure that your yeses are very intentional.
Yeah.
Something to keep in mind that someone told me one time, every time you say yes, you're saying no to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you saying yes to? Is it stuff that you want to say yes to? And what is that yes costing you? Because they all cost something. All
Yeah.
your yeses cost something. So when you are saying yes, what are you saying no to? And are you saying it to the right things?
Mm-hmm.
So
I
when
love
you're
that.
staying late to grade those papers, what are you saying no to? Are you saying no to family time? Are you saying no to time where you could be rejuvenating yourself and showing up in class rested the next day? What are you saying no to? If you're keeping up with the thread from the colleagues and there's like 60 messages a day on there and you're trying your best to reply to everybody, what is it costing you when you do that? What
Mm-hmm.
are you saying no to every time you say yes to that thread and you're engaging? So being able to set those boundaries, it can feel uncomfortable for a little bit. And one way to try to help get over that is to stand in front of your mirror and say it out loud because your nervous system hears it and like, oh, wait, I've heard that before. And it helps you get past that initial shock of
Mm-hmm.
saying no. It's like, whoa, I said that. But learning how to say it and to do it in a way that is kind to the other person. You don't have to over explain, set your boundaries, stay
Yes.
faithful to them. Setting them is hard, keeping them can be even harder because
Mm-hmm.
there's always a quote good reason to say yes and to break that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to keep that in place, understanding that when you do, you're able to show up as a good employee, a good teacher, you're there for your students. And one thing to keep in mind when you're pouring out to students, yes, you need to care for them. Yes, you're giving to them. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of them. And a
Mm-hmm.
really simple example of this is for anybody who has flown and heard a flight attendant say, if we lose cabin pressure and the mask will fall from the top, put one on yourself first before putting one on the child or person next to you. The reason why, if you pass out, you can't help anybody else. So it may initially sound selfish that I'm not taking care of the child above myself, but if I pass out, I can't take care of the child. So if you're not taking care of yourself,
True.
you're not
Yeah.
if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be there for the student. So
Mm-hmm.
while you may not be able to, if you're drawing boundaries, you may have to say, no, the reports are not going to be finished tomorrow. I can't hand this in tomorrow, but it means I can be a better teacher tomorrow, which is more important, that the report
Mm-hmm.
is done by tomorrow morning or that you're showing up as a better teacher
Mm-hmm.
because you went home and ate a good meal and spent some time doing something creative or relaxing, and got a good night's sleep and showed up the next day, which
Yeah.
is more important. That you're there for your family, that you're there for your own children, whatever, your spouse. What's more important? Because every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you're saying no to the right things and yes to the correct things. So some very simple boundaries. You mentioned one of them is keeping email off of your cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
which means you can't be accessible. So setting times for when you're going to check your emails. Um, and you also mentioned doing grading during school, which is another fantastic one. Um, Making sure that the additional commitments you're taking on support your mission and don't take away from it. Just because you're capable of doing something does not mean you have the capacity to do that and do it
Yeah.
well.
You got to say that one again because that right there, I think, sums up what I'm thinking of some teachers in particular where they think they have the ability to do it,
Mhm.
but the capacity is just not there. Do you remember how you said it? It was good.
Yes. Just because you have the capability of doing something does not mean you have the capacity to fulfill it faithfully.
Yes. Double
So,
underline highlight. Mm-hmm.
yes, I've run into this a lot of times. In fact, one of my clients I'm working with right now, she is an overgiver and she's learning self-care boundaries for the first time. It's a little bit of a shock to her system, but it's helping her.
Yeah, I
But
bet.
one thing she told me, she's like, Lori, I always felt like if I was able to do it, that I was obligated to do it. You are not. Just because you have the capability does not mean you have the capacity. Those are two very, very different things.
Yes.
So, making sure that your commitments are lining up with your calling, your mission, and what is where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when you say no to things, you're opening the opportunity for someone else to step up. And this one I learned firsthand because like when I was a team player at work, like I was there for my team. And anytime I saw, so John Doe falling down, like they weren't fulfilling this, I would step in and do it for them.
Mm,
Not to try to take over their job or to reflect poorly on them, but because I was a team player, I wanted to come in behind them and help them and support them.
hmm.
And then I'm like, I can't do this. I've got to stop. And so I started drawing boundaries and I just said, I'm not doing this anymore. I said it to myself. I didn't tell them. I just like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing this anymore. So when that person did not successfully do whatever it was, I kept my mouth shut. I did not do their job for them. And guess what happened? That person learned to step up and do his job better,
Wow.
which was a good thing. And
Yes.
he became a phenomenal leader. When he first took the job as supervisor, there were some sad things. But when I stopped filling in the gaps for him, and it wasn't the only thing, obviously, that helped him improve, but just
Right.
that one thing, when I stopped filling in the gaps for him and let him learn to stand on his own 2 feet, he got a lot better at it and became a
Mm.
really great supervisor. And part of that, a piece of that was me drawing boundaries and saying, I'm not doing it anymore. So when you say no to something, you're opening opportunities for someone else to step up into that.
Yeah. And you know what's funny, Lori? As you're talking about boundaries and we're mentioning teacher text threads, I actually had to take my phone that's on silent and put it behind me and suffocate it because I I think I've gotten like 30 notifications from my teacher, one of my teacher threads as as we're talking. So if people hear buzzing, that's what that is. And yes, I've made my priority right now.
Yes.
Oh gosh, but
One
yeah,
thing, one other thing I'd like to say on this to help people to understand, just give a visual.
yeah.
We often think of boundaries as walls where we're cutting ourselves off and walling ourselves in, but that's not what they're for.
Mhm.
Boundaries are bridges. They are a way for you to build healthy, sustainable relationships with the people around you. Because when you are giving yourself to every single thing that comes along, you're spread so thin that
Mhm.
you're showing with just scraps of yourself. You're not coming with your whole self.
Mm.
So it's a way to build sustainable relationships with people, your students, your fellow teachers, your administrators, your family, your church family, whoever is near your neighborhood. It's a way to build sustainable relationships. So boundaries are not walls. They're not intended to close yourself off and to isolate yourself. They're intended to help you build sustainable relationships with the people around you.
Yeah, and I would venture to say that one of the biggest relationships that can actually help you bridge is with your students, which is probably the most important thing that we need to be really developing in our
Mhm.
classrooms. The curriculum will come much easier, the strategies will come much easier, the activities that we plan will just flow so much more smoother. The behaviors will improve when we're building those relationships. And I
Yes.
think you hit the nail on the head when you said that that can actually be started with setting boundaries on some of those other things.
Yes.
So,
It can really help you quite a bit.
yeah, great. Laura, this conversation has been amazing. Thank you so, so much. Please tell my listeners, where can they find out more about you? Do you have anything, any resources for them? What do you have, and where can we learn more about you?
So I have the podcast Practical Solutions for PTSD,
Mhm.
and I'm on any podcasting platform out there. You can look me up. And then my website is by the same name, practicalsolutionsforptsd.com. And that tells you a whole bunch about, my background, about the podcast. Also, I do speaking engagements, coaching, all that kind of stuff. It's all found there. And this would be particularly relevant considering our conversation, but I have
Yeah,
a boundary setting worksheet that they can download for free. You
awesome.
can find that on practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/podcast. There's a banner across the top. You just click on that, put in the request. It'll be sent to you right away. So absolutely, they can, and that the worksheet is a 7-step process. It walks you through how to identify your values. It walks you through like tiny steps, baby steps on setting boundaries and
Mm.
coming up with phrases and how to say no.
That's
And
great.
you have to keep from over explaining yourself and how to articulate your boundary, how to keep that boundary, different guidelines for that. And I mean, as well as I have a whole bunch of stuff on my podcast on boundaries. This is one of my favorite topics, but because it's so needed in our world today.
Yeah.
Anyway, boundary setting worksheet, you can get that for free. Just go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/podcast and download that.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that would be the very next step for so many of us right now. And
Yes.
Thanks so much for being here with us, Lori. You've really dropped so much great value on all of us today.
One thing I did forget to mention, they could get 10% off of coaching, their first coaching session if they sign up. I can actually walk them through that boundary setting process if they need help with that, along with other things that can help them be even better teachers than they already are. But if they want to set up a coaching session, they can do that on the website as well, and just use the code guest 10% and get 10% off their first coaching session.
Awesome. I hope someone takes you up on that for sure.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. And thanks so much, Elizabeth. I really appreciated being on your podcast. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, great. Thanks, Lori. I hope today's conversation reminded you of one very important truth. Caring deeply about your students doesn't mean you have to carry everything that they are carrying. One of my favorite takeaways from this interview was Lori's reminder that just because we're capable of doing something doesn't always mean we have the capacity to do it well. It's a mindset shift I think every teacher needs to hear. Now, if this episode resonated with you, be sure to visit Lori's website to download her free boundary setting worksheet. I've linked it inside the show notes along with information about her coaching and the special discount that she mentioned. And if you know a teacher who's been saying, I'm just so tired, or I don't know if I can keep doing this, would you please share this episode with them? Sometimes hearing that they're not alone, that there are practical tools that can help, is exactly what we need. As always, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to leave a review and share this with another educator. Every share and every review helps more teachers discover this podcast, and that is where we can really help teachers understand how possible it is to enjoy teaching again. All right, I'll see you next time. I hope this episode inspired you, encouraged you, or gave you a fresh idea to try. And if so, I would love for you to take a screenshot and text it to one of your teaching buddies. I'm so grateful that you landed here with me today, and it would mean the world to me if you would leave me a review over on Apple Podcast. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. This is Elizabeth Peterson reminding you to get inspired so you can be inspiring to your students and enjoy teaching again.